Hi everybody, my name is Sawyer Krivanek and this is my ethnography. So I wanted to start with my family history. My great-grandma, Miriam, grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and way back in the day, my great-grandpa Earl was visiting from Maine in the 1920s. He worked for the Burlington Railroad Factory, and they had to base him out into Omaha, Nebraska. During his time there, he was based for about 6 months. He met my great-grandma Miriam, and the rest is history. But during that time, my great-grandma Miriam went to Omaha North High School, and this is in the early 1920s once again, and this is also the high school I went to. Later on, my great aunts and my uncles also went to Omaha North High School, and continuing kind of the story back to my grandparents, my great-grandpa Earl served in World War II in a tank battalion. There's a postcard here where he was traveling from Omaha, Nebraska to a training facility in Southern California. They specifically stopped in Santa Clara, New Mexico. And this is where my great-grandpa Earl sent my great-grandpa Miriam, a postcard, which was on August 21st, 1945, and it reads, "Dearest, still moving, and will probably be for a couple days yet. Still miss you very, very much. Love, Earl." My great-grandpa Earl passed away in 1999 when I was 1 year old. My dad would talk about him a lot growing up. He would share memories of them going to Nebraska football games, going fishing, going golfing, or whatever sort of activity he was sharing with my dad at the time. My dad also mentioned he did not very much like to talk about the war, but he knows that he followed troops and got pretty deep into Germany later on in 1945. Aside from that, my great-grandpa would motivate my dad to play sports and pushed him to play football and go to college in California. My great-grandpa Miriam, who loved to cook and shop, two things she did with my dad quite a bit growing up, and she also passed away in 1988, so I never really had a chance to meet either of them. Their daughter, Kathy Willits, who's my grandma, met my grandpa Ed Krivanek in 1966. She and my grandpa are still alive together today. They're still living in Tampa Bay, Florida. I have not seen them in about 10 years, unfortunately, as we stopped having family get-togethers once my parents divorced. On the other side of my story is the Clinton side. This is really what shaped my worldview and kind of a large factor for why I chose to become an educator. My great-grandparents on the Clinton side came from England in the early 1900s. My grandma Jane Clinton is unsure of exactly when this went down, but she knows that we are primarily Irish and English, and we have a small percentage of Swedish in us. My grandma Jane married my grandpa Terrell in 1962. My grandpa Terrell was a high school social studies teacher, but more notably was a Hall of Fame basketball coach in Iowa. His brothers, my uncles, my Uncle Ron and Uncle Gary, were also high school teachers and both basketball coaches at rivaling schools to my grandpa Terrell. My grandpa Terrell passed away in 1998, the same year I was born, so I was unable to meet him as well. My grandma Jane was a middle school science teacher for 35 years. As the torch passed on, my mom, Jen, became an elementary school teacher right out of graduating college. Fast forwarding all the way to now, I am currently a high school teacher. My wife is a high school teacher. My brother is a middle school teacher, and my sister-in-law is also a high school teacher. So as the bloodline continues, we seemingly have had multiple educators in the Clinton and Krivanek family for over 75 years. Speaking with my parents, they're unsure if there are any educators prior to my grandparents, but they think there's likely someone out there doing some sort of teaching 100+ years ago. Moving forward, I wanted to talk about my personal journey and how that has really shaped my viewpoints towards social justice issues in education. So going back, I graduated from University of Nebraska-Lincoln in 2020, and I had a degree in environmental sciences. I had no plans to be a teacher, no plans to work in education, and I really wanted to work in national parks or some sort of manner that assists our environmental issues. After doing that for a few years, things did not go as kind of planned, and I always knew education would be a great fallback for myself, coming from a family of educators. So it was very interesting moving from Nebraska to New Mexico, looking at the different challenges, the different issues, and kind of the priorities for each state. As mentioned, I grew up in a family who is extremely dedicated to academics. My dad was not a teacher, but he wrote articles for the local newspaper for a handful of years, so he's always teaching me different writing and reading skills all throughout my K-12 schooling. So my background has kind of shaped me to have that educational drive naturally. So starting off in my journey, I became a sub, working K-12 while also going back to school at UNM, and I really got to spend a lot of time in every single grade level, from first grade all the way until 8th grade at the school I was working at. Later on, I transitioned into high school and worked in different grade levels as well, subbing from freshman to senior, and eventually I got my teaching certificate and began working with sophomores. As I've gone through my journey, I've seen a lot of issues that I really didn't experience when I was going to school. And it's a little different being a teacher compared to a student, but there's a lot of issues that students in New Mexico face that I feel is not as prevalent in Nebraska. This comes from all sorts of income discrepancies, income issues, tons of poverty, and just as a historical issue that students have been facing for a very long time. Working at a Title I school, currently at Del Norte, we have 99% free and reduced lunch, so it's a different sort of challenge, trying to engage students, involve them, while also trying to recognize their issues at home and try to get the best out of them, while trying to get the best out of myself at the same time. So navigating through different grade levels and kind of comparing my experiences to my experiences in New Mexico has certainly been a challenge. I'm still striving to navigate the best practices, the best way to involve students, kind of recognize their heritage, recognize their background, which has been a huge helpful taking this class, also taking the TEL training previously. But I really think my background, coming from a family of educators, has really assisted me as much as possible. Continuing my education in New Mexico, assisting as many students as possible, making sure that their voices are heard, making sure their background is not forgotten, and making sure they have the skills and habits to prepare themselves for the future. Thanks again.